All right, welcome back, everybody, for another Deep Dive.
This time, we are going to be talking about boundaries,
Ooh, boundaries.
personal boundaries. And we are going to be looking at a book called Boundaries Create Freedom by Keisha Solomon.
Right.
Now, I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah.
And it can be difficult to set those boundaries, especially when you feel like you're letting people down.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see what Keisha has to say about all this and how we can maybe improve and not feel so guilty.
Yeah, and even what are boundaries?
Right?
Like, what are we even talking about?
What even are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've read through the book, and one of the things that she really emphasizes right off the bat is this idea of a high-value woman, and that high-value women set boundaries. And they don't feel guilty about it. And it's a sign of self-respect and prioritization.
So what is she even talking about? Like,
Yeah.
What is a high-value woman?
What does it even mean?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard this term before.
But it always feels kind of like...
I know.
Yeah, it feels loaded.
It does feel loaded.
It does, yeah. So
Yeah.
she actually addresses that right away,
Okay.
which I appreciated. And she's very clear that a high-value woman, in her definition, is not about external things.
Right.
Like, it's not about your career or your money or any of that. It's about your internal qualities, right?
Mm.
It's about knowing your self-worth, knowing what you want, not compromising your values.
I like that.
Yeah.
So how does that connect to boundaries then?
Well, because setting boundaries is part of how you express those things.
Okay.
It's like saying, this is important to me, I'm not going to sacrifice this.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a lot of people struggle with this.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, they feel guilty
Yeah.
saying no, or they worry about disappointing people,
Yeah.
or they just feel like they should be able to do it all.
Right. Like, you should be able to handle it all. Yeah.
Yeah. She talks about boundaries being like filters.
Yeah.
That's a really cool image. I love that analogy.
Yeah.
I think it's so helpful.
Because it makes it so clear. Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't drink, like, contaminated water without filtering it, right?
Right.
So why would you let all these things into your life without filtering them?
So what are some examples
Yeah.
of those filters?
Mm.
What are those boundaries?
Yeah. So, I mean, one that comes to mind for me and that she talks about in the book is just saying no more often.
Right.
Like, I know I struggled for years to say no to social commitments, especially when I was feeling burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
It felt so selfish. But then I realized, like, no, this is actually self-care.
Yeah.
This is how I can actually show up as a better friend in the long run because I'm taking care of myself.
Yeah. And I think that's so important.
Because a lot of times we think of boundaries as being selfish,
Totally.
but it's actually the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're protecting your well-being so that you can then give to others.
Exactly. So, I mean, some concrete examples from the book that she gives, right?
Yeah.
Like saying no to that extra commitment when you're already overloaded, limiting your time with people who consistently drain your energy,
Oh, yeah.
even just setting aside
Right.
time for yourself, even if it means saying no to other demands.
Oh, for self-care.
For self-care. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's so important.
And I like how she talks about it's not about shutting people out completely.
Right.
You know, it's about creating healthy relationships and
Mhm.
communicating your needs
Absolutely.
so that you can show up authentically.
Yeah, it's about saying, this is what I'm willing to accept, this is what I'm not, communicating that clearly and respectfully,
Mm-hmm.
and creating that space for yourself where you can thrive.
So why does all of this matter? I mean, you know, people are busy,
Yeah.
they've got lives, they've got jobs, they've got kids, they've got all this stuff going on.
Why should they even care about boundaries?
That's such a good question. It matters because, and she says this, she's like, boundaries create freedom. You know, when you have strong boundaries, you have more time and energy for what matters to you. You're less likely to feel burnt out or resentful,
Right.
and you're able to go after your goals, your passions with more focus.
Because you're not so scattered.
Exactly.
And you're not giving your energy away
Yeah.
to a million different things.
Every little thing that pops up. Yeah.
And you're not feeling guilty about it.
Yeah. And I mean, isn't that what we all want at the end of the day?
Yeah.
To live a life that feels authentically ours, you know,
That feels good. Yeah.
aligned with our values.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we all want.
So if boundaries are the key to that,
Mhm.
like what could you create? What would you have the energy and the space to do if you weren't constantly feeling drained or pulled in different directions?
Something to think about.
Food for thought.
Food for thought.
All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in to another deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.